Once again, it was James Tedesco who brought the Roosters back into it. Their second try was from Siua Wong. And we were just chatting about this one off air. Like, certainly by the letter of the law, it is a try because you can ground it with your forearm. Were you happy with that decision, Freddie?
Yes, absolutely.
Joey?
Yeah, whether it touches his fingers, but I think his forearm plants the ball.
Once again, my bugbear, show it in real time, maybe have one look in slow motion. Don't look at it in super slow motion. Just if it looks like a try, then it's a try. Just show it in real time, make a decision.
What do you reckon, Locke?
If the rule is you can downward force with your forearm, then it's a try. I don't think he has control, but by the letter of the law, it's a try.
Yeah.
But I suppose he's lucky the ball was on the ground.
Yeah,
as his forearm was touching.
But the terminology, if you're going for a try and it comes out of your hand, a foot, and they say you got to re-grip it.
Yeah.
If you got little Ewok hands, how most players, you cannot re-grip it. If your hand stays on it and you get downward pressure, just show it in real time, make a decision, move on.
I thought they changed that rule a little bit. I'll find out for you. Because I thought they made.
I keep hearing.
I thought they made adjustments to it. I know I keep hearing that, but there was the Appy Coruscant one, where he dropped it and did what you said, re-gripped it and forced the ball down, and they didn't give it. And I thought they adjusted the rule. I'll find out in one of the breaks. I'll get on the case.
It was a brave win by the Roosters.
Yeah, without all the
I've got to say, the Knights tried their backside. Geez, they played tough.
They got nervous, didn't they, the Knights?
They stopped playing a bit. And once again, they had so much possession and they scored one try early. The Roosters made 90 more tackles. And in that time, with that dominance, they still only scored one try. During all that ball, I think there was around 450-odd play the balls for Newcastle. They offloaded the ball 5 times. You've got to offload the ball these days. Everyone defends all the same shapes, so you need a point of difference. I thought for the Roosters, Teddy was unbelievable. I thought the left centre, Billy Smith, defensively, he stopped about 3 or 4 certain tries.
He's a class player, Billy Smith. But it took 60 minutes for the Roosters to score their first try, so that's a big effort from the Knights in terms of their defence. But yeah, given the amount of ball that they had, I guess one try, they'd probably be a little bit disappointed with that. But the Knights probably, I think that's been their Achilles heel, is their attack. They've had a lot of players coming in and out of the squad, especially in the spine. They've got a few players to come back. I think some of them will be back next week, but... yeah, for that much ball. Yeah.
That was the tackle.
It's Billy Smith.
That was a big tackle from Billy.
Is Billy Smith a future Origin player, Freddie?
Yeah, absolutely. He's reliable. Reminds me a lot of Stephen Crichton.
This is the tackle. That was a great tackle.
He's had so much misfortune with injuries, like more than just about anyone I've ever seen. So you just got to hope he stays on the field for a while. But he's just a great decision maker. You can just see when he's out there, he's clear, he thinks clear. And when he comes in, he's also like Crichton, where he's got long levers. So when they come in, they can defend big spaces and they put their hands and that up in your direction. So they sort of just, even when they're not defending you, they're giving you the idea that the space is covered anyway.
Instinctive.
So,
He's instinctive.
Very good.
Dylan Lucas for Newcastle was out of this world. Talk about Origin players.
Great balance, hasn't he?
He's a player who would pick on the bench because he can play back row. He started in the centres. You could play him in the middle. You could even play him on the wing. And he competes and strong, as tough as he gets. And the trust players have in him, every time they go to the left, they hit him. He very rarely runs a decoy. He's come on so much as a player.
What about Victor Radley? It was tough to see him go off again for an HIA. So in the last 4 years, that's now 7 failed HIAs.
Yeah, it's a real worry.
Is it a worry?
It's a real worry for Vic. I've got to say the Roosters are probably leading the competition is how they handle head knocks. They retired Boyd Cordner early, Jake Friend, Freddy, they retired. So first things first is the health of the player, and you have to take it out of the player's hand, especially someone like Victor. You've got to take it out of his hand, but it's a real worry for Victor.
I think the concerning part is that wasn't really a big bump. And so when players are getting some sort of, concussions when it's not a heavy knock, then that's alarming.
What about...
Well, Jake Trebojevic is in a similar position over the last couple of months where he had a couple of knocks in a row and then, and one of them, like you said, a lot like the Victor one, where it just didn't seem that much. So that must be the...
And the example for Jake and Victor is going low, tackling low. Now, it's all that sort of worry about hitting players high, but the problem is if you're encouraging players to go low, knees, hips, elbows, that's where you're picking up all your concussions defensively.
Well, we are, of course.
And he's got a flaw in his technique because he's a million miles an hour. He tries to smash everyone, Victor. And we love the way he plays, but this is the problem.
He needs a little spell, I think. I think they're going to buy next week, but you can't. They say you've got to take it out of Victor's hands because he'll want to play every week.
Wishing Victor all the very best. Just finally on that game, Dom Young, it was a strange one because he went straight up to, I mean, he spoke to all of his Roosters teammates afterwards, but then next week, well, from essentially today, I think it's going to be made official that he's heading back to the Newcastle Knights. So just a bit of a weird one, isn't it?
Well, there was no question after the game. You could see, normally you go around and sort of shake all the other team's hands. Dom was shaking all the Roosters, and there was like little emotional moments, and you could see who he'd befriended in the Roosters, and then at the end he actually nearly, I think, walked over to a few of the Knights and was speaking to one of the managers of the Knights. But I thought it was just a really interesting way to finish a game. He just didn't work at the Roosters. He still scored a lot of tries. He's a great try scorer.
He didn't catch the team bus to the game. He had a removalist truck from the eastern suburbs. Walkers and Sons. He had all his gear in there.
Excited to have him back?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
He was great. That game against Canberra.
When he went down the eastern
awesome.
grandstand, everyone was...
That was awesome. What a day that was.
Yeah.
That was a great game.
58-4, the final score of the Cowboys up in Townsville. They've now scored 158 points in their last 3 matches, which is quite incredible given they started the season with 4 straight losses and everyone was starting to panic and saying, oh, it's the curse after Wayne Bennett. But Christian Wolf said, we're sticking to our processes, we're confident, and all of a sudden they're turning into this attacking juggernaut. And it doesn't matter whether it's Nikorima, Katoa, Herbie, Jack Bostock, everyone is just phenomenal to watch right now.
Yeah, Christian Wolf, the coach, deserves a massive pat on the back. You know, it's like when the coach starts feeling under pressure, it gets onto the players. He kept his cool. They're a top 8 team. I don't think they can win purely the injuries. Daniel Safidi, Tom Gilbert, Max Plath, Thomas Flegler. If they were all there and available, I would say they're a dark horse. They've got the best centre in the world in Herbie Farnworth. This bloke here, oh my gosh, I could talk for 3.5 hours on him. He is just as good as they get. They're a tough team. They don't beat themselves. They'll be top 8 for sure.
Some of the games I've covered with them, watching them the way they play, they're like a top 4 team because they not just score points, they're brutal in defence. They get their shoulders in here, they're physical, and that's how they get their points on the back of just getting the physicality out there in their defence. And they're the second best attacking team in the competition right now behind Melbourne, and they've got the second best for and against. I mean, obviously the last 3 games has helped that, but it's not... Yeah,
I like this touch.
8 games in a row now, Herbie scored a try.
Yeah, right.
Geez, Avarillo was good at fullback. He's such a good player.
So saying top 8, or Lockie, you're saying even top 4. Will we go as far as to say they've got what it takes to win the comp?
No, not this year. I think they're
How far off are they?
I think they may win 1 semi-final. I think they'll be definitely top 8. I just worry about missing those key middles. Daniel Safidi, Tom Gilbert, Max Plath, and also Flegler. If they were all there, they're a chance.
Well, Gilbert will be back this year.
Really? I thought he's gone for the year.
No, he's done a
torn bicep.
Did a pec. Yeah, but I think he's back later this year.
Yeah, okay.
No, Flegler won't be. Then you got Max Plath. I think he'll be back later in the year, so they'll have a couple of those guys come back. But again, they're in a sweet spot at the moment.
I think what Lockie said before, this is all on the back of they're brutal. They're brutal in defence. They ask real questions, and you can see the Cowboys just didn't want anything to do with it. They're an inexperienced side. They lost Jason Taumalolo in the warm-up. They had a lot go against them, and they're very physical.
One of those hits was Kurt Donahue. That was just out of this world, and he doesn't get a lot of the raps because we tend to talk about the likes of Katoa. But look at that, get that into you.
Look at the energy. Look at the energy. He was brilliant against Canterbury, broke his nose and kept playing on and got it straightened, and you can just tell their mentality of this team is be brutal and physical first, and the points come on the back
I
of it.
think Kurt Donahue may have been hanging out with our man Ray Stone.
Red flag, Ray.
He had the eyes on. Ray Stone, even his name just gives me chills.
I love when he scores. He doesn't even smile.
What did he say? He hates scoring tries.
Hate scoring tries.
I tell you, he loves scoring tries.
He cops a hit on the way down. Imagine he loved the hit in the head more than the try.
How good.
I could see Ray with a tally.
Yeah.
4 tries to
Driving
Jack
at you.
Bostock, almost 5. They were getting stuck into him, saying, "Oh, you were a little bit arrogant at the end. You could have had 5." I know a few weeks ago, Joey said, "Oh, he could be a smoky for Origin." That's when
definitely.
Zach Lomax was injured.
Yeah.
Lockie, what do you love most about watching Jack Bostock do
Oh,
this thing?
well, he's obviously an instinctive football, a bit like we were talking about Billy Smith earlier. He just knows how to finish, score a try. Like that's, that's instinct to be able to get that intercept there. And, I don't know how many tries he scored now. Is it there? No, but he scored 4 on the weekend. But if he stays fit and healthy, he'll become one of our greatest try scorers, I reckon.
And strong in the air, big body.
Yeah.
Brings the ball
He's
coming
only
out
young
of trouble.
too. You talk about strong in the air. Normally, it normally takes a couple of years, doesn't it, to get that strength? Like you look at someone like Xavier Coates, sort of got bullied around a little bit at times, but now you just don't beat him in the air.
Now, just before we head to a break, Freddie, we were chatting about the Siua Wong try and the official rule. We put you to work and you've already got the answer from the NRL.
So the amendment for the 2023 season, grounding of the ball, they're now awarded if the ball rotates from the hand to the wrist or the forearm, provided there is no obvious separation between the ball and the hand or the arm. There you go.
There you go.
Try.
So, tick, 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 that is a
Tick.
try.
Yeah,
Well done. Investigative journalist Brad Fittler. Thank you
done.
very much for that.
Sleuth.
Love that. There's a lot of talk about the Titans this week and Des Hasler being under pressure, but up against a Manly side who had, Lockie, all of their big names. If you said at the start of the year that during Origin, Manly would have Jake Trbojevic, Tom Trbojevic and Daly Cherry Evans, we'd say you're absolutely mad, but even still they couldn't get done.
Yeah, it's disappointing for Manly. You would think with the news, DCE wasn't playing Origin. I was expecting him to have a man of the match performance, but the forwards never really laid a platform for their backs. And after that early try for Manly, they went to sleep and they just lost their intensity. And for the Titans, well, a much-needed win. They scored some good tries in the first half, a lot of ball movement, but
That's the worry.
Yeah.
That's the biggest worry, watching that try. Players stopping, players not moving their legs. That was a real worry, yeah. They got it right in the key positions. 4.5 back, Jaden Campbell 5'8", Brimson fullback.
Yeah.
That's moving forward, lock those in. Brimson's a fullback. This bloke's a 5'8", a running 5'8", and Kieran steers the team around.
What about when Kinney comes back? He's, I think, due back around 21-ish.
We have to come back through the bench.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put him in 14, he's got to earn his position.
I think he won their Player of the Year last year. I mean, he's a good player, and that's always been the conundrum of the Titans. They've always had these 5 players go into full roles. So that'll be the trick, or what the decision. But Brimson, I agree, is a fullback. Yeah.
They had a chance, Manly. There was a period of about 10 minutes where Olakwatu dropped the ball over the line from a catch. Jason Saab had an opportunity to score a try, going over the winger for a catch, and then Olakwatu popped his shoulder out. And
He's gone for 6 weeks.
Fermor got his hand on the ball. So, the defence of the Titans was the one thing that stood up more than that has in the past. But 3 opportunities they had in 10 minutes, and then that was the last one.
Well, without him, they are a totally different team. It's their go-to side with Olakwatu on the right side.
He looks in pain.
And he's so damaging. Is it 1 from 7? Manly of 1? Something like that.
Is it an attitude? I mean, Anthony Seibold certainly seems to think...
Well, there's excuses. They've lost some middles. Paseka they lost him early.
Josh Aloier is
Josh
also
Aloier
injured, might have to medically retire.
So there are some excuses, but they're playing poor. They're playing poor. Considering Jake was back, Turbo was back, and DCE, I thought they were absolute morals. He still looks busted, Turbo.
Yeah, when I was commented the other night, he probably looks in the best shape. Like when you look at him, he's lean, but I just feel like it's a confidence issue at the moment.
He's proppy in contact.
Well, I just think he just needs to either score a try that he does it the old Turbo probably here gets that, he scores in that moment. I just don't think he's 100% confident in his ability.
Surging. Normally he surges into whether he's worried about that hamstring going again. But it's sad to see he's a champion, but that body just keeps breaking down.
A lot of there when they were shifting the balls all off the defensive line. So they're just going sideways. Like even the Titans, who haven't got the best defence, they're just rounding them up towards the touchline.
See, I think there's a lot of teams out there now that don't get a lot of variety in their attack. We're dropping players under and picking up your fullback, running through the middle of the field. I don't think we see enough of that these days.
Well, you think about it, it doesn't make sense. From the age of 15, 16, they come into junior systems and they defend all these shapes and it goes through when they get to NRL and they've been defending these shapes for 5, 6 years. Then the opposition team runs the same shapes. Do something different. Offload the ball. Hashtag offload the ball.
Hashtag offload the ball. It was a
Hashtag
huge...
show it in real time.
Yes.
We could come up with plenty, couldn't we? Freddie, you and I were sidelined there. And how good was Blake Brayley and his running game? I think after that first try, you said he'd already run for more metres than the week before. And I know it's been a real focus of him, particularly over the last month. He said he almost had to rewire his brain to think run first instead of pass.
Well, within the first 10 minutes of this game, he'd ran more than he had the whole game last week. And you just see the difference it makes. There was a game when you look at Manly. He didn't have a run, Lachlan Croker, not one run the whole game. And you wonder why your outside men can't be dangerous. You need to bring the defence in. And the only way to do that is by being dangerous and crafty around the ruck. And I thought within the first minute you could tell that he was going to have a good game. The other thing, their defence was poor through the middle. Like the tries they scored, the Dragons, were soft. And it felt like at half-time, the moment they stiffened that up around the middle, the game turned instantly.
Joey, was it more the fact that the Dragons fell apart, or was it just that finally the Sharks clicked into gear? And as we've seen so many times this season, once one side gets momentum, it's just so hard to wrestle back.
A Cookie scored off a late offload. Funny that. I think a bit of both. I think they've fought their way back, but I thought the Sharks were the Dragons were pretty ordinary in the second half. They found a way to win, the Sharks, but it was a pretty average game in the end. But they found a way to win, they fought back. But if they're going to compete against the top teams, the Sharks, they need to be a whole lot better.
Yeah, when you look at it doing the tips, which is it's a minefield at the moment, you think Sharks at Shark Park are always going to play well, but they had 40 put on them by the Warriors the week before, and at half-time here I thought, they're in a bit of trouble here, the Sharks, but they found their mojo in the second half. That might give them a bit of confidence.
Did you like what you saw from Braden Trindall? Because I know at times we've said this year, like he and Nico have come in and out of games, but scored a double, and probably behind Blake Brayley was perhaps the next best for the Sharkies.
Well, he's playing in the six, but he's playing like a halfback. He's doing 90% of the kicking, which he's on the left side. So for a right footer, he's getting it done. His high balls, when he hits them high, which enables them to compete for the ball. Scored 2 tries. He was probably one of their best. It was a big game. Nickera, was it 150 for him? It was a big night for him.
Mm-hmm. Scored his 50th try.
But in the end, they found a way to win. But once again, they're going to have to be a whole lot better to beat the top teams.
It'll be interesting in the next week or two they actually play the Dolphins. We'll talk about how brutal the Dolphins are in their defence. It's one thing the Sharks sort of fade a little bit.
They go Brisbane. They go Brisbane and
Storm. In a couple of weeks, I noticed.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, up there or down here?
Yeah, I'll have to look again.
No, they play Brisbane away, Melbourne away, then the bye. So I'd say it'd be at Shark Park against the Dolphins. Done my homework.
I like it. Toby Rudolph also returned from injury. He was laughing after the match and said, "Oh, look, when I came on in the second half, that's when things started to turn around." But something in particular really caught our attention when Gal went into the shed. So they did a nice little interview.
How good's that?
Do we rate that? Nice little bromance with Toby and Gal going.
Was there any tongue? That's why Gal's laughing. That tongue went right down the back of his throat.
It looked like there was going to be tongue until Gal sort of turned his head away.
I reckon he'd
Toby'd be flat,
he'd buy nothing.
Beat Toby.
But even though he only came on in that second half,
he played
just
well.
the energy he provides as well, don't you think?
He charges.
Yeah.
He'd be so good to play with because he's such a character. But when he comes on, he's off the back fence, a bit like Nathan Brown. You'd love to play with those blokes, especially in the showers after the game when he's smooching people. Freddie would have liked that. Oh man, Drew and Freddie.
Leave me out of your infatuations, please.